We're recording Midweek Howl number 5,721 is now underway.
What did they say on Hee Haw Salute?
I thought it was gloom, despair,
Yeah,
agony on me.
they did something else. Didn't remember? They'd do something and he'd go salute.
Listen, today as we're loading up the mail trucks, one of the guys, he's not even maybe like 3 years younger than me, and I start singing one of my favorite Buck Owens songs, "Act Naturally."
Oh,
you know, because they get that, they're going to put me in the movies or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And he's like, he didn't register with him, and I said, "You don't know who Buck Owens is?" And he goes, "No." I go, "You never saw Hee Haw?" And he goes, "Maybe when I was like 3. I'm like, okay, I got nothing. If you don't know who Buck Owens is and or Hee Haw, then I don't know.
You know what's crazy? Not crazy, but there's some videos out there of Buck Owens on some variety shows, and he's a mean guitar player. Did you know that?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
I mean, a mean not only fiddle, not only banjo, but a mean guitar player.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What's crazy is one of our guests on the paranormal part of the podcast his name's Happy. He's become a friend of mine. He just last week sent me this clip of Buck Owens at must have been a show, and he's like talking ahead, introducing whatever it is he's going to do, and he just matter of factly goes, "And my wife left me yesterday." Like that was part of it. Like, I'm going to sing "Act Naturally," and my wife left me yesterday.
So did she, or was that just part? Did you make that up?
No, it was real. It was real. She just left. He was just like.
Well, I ain't gonna say what they say down here because I know we got some good Christian listeners, but
that doesn't matter. They'll forgive you if they're good Christian listeners.
Maybe, I don't know. You never read about the Crusades, have you? Best way to get over the last one's get under the next one. What they say.
Oh man. So I'm going to tell you something that happened to me yesterday. It was a first. Okay. Yep. It was a first.
Yep.
So we, Todd, who's been on the podcast with us, we run a big
trash man.
Trash man. Yeah. We run like a, girls AAU basketball program here in North Central Ohio. And yesterday, he got a deal where we could took one of the teams. It was 6th grade girls, and they played halftime of the Ohio State women's basketball program or team yesterday. Okay. So Christy and Izzy and I went down a little bit early to do a little shopping, and there's a mall there called Easton in part of Columbus. It's a nice outdoor mall. And they got a store I like to go to called Trader Joe's. Like it's
yeah, I know what like Trader Joe's is. They have in Minneapolis. Yeah.
Okay. So I like to go there because
they're good. Finish, and I'll tell you my Trader Joe's story.
Okay. Maybe not. You might not, because once I
guarantee you I'm going to say it.
Okay. So the parking lot, like, they had been shopping, and we walked out to the car, got in the car, drove maybe 150 yards down to the Trader Joe's, parked in front. You got in the parking lot in front of the Trader Joe's. As we're walking up to the Trader Joe's, pow, pow, like 2 just huge bangs. And Izzy doesn't even hesitate. She's like, down, back to the car. Christy's like, whoa, oh my God, those are gunshots. And I'm like, I don't know what those were. The guy up ahead of us, he's on the ground. He's covering his kid. And I'm like looking around like, did somebody just shoot a gun, like out here in like what is going on? Like we're in downtown, we're in Columbus, and and the guy scoops his kid up and the kid's crying, and he goes, "Hey, I just think that was a car backfiring, but we're gonna get out of here." And I'm scoping out like like it came from where we just came from, like where we had gotten our car and drove down to Trader Joe's. And I'm looking, I don't see anybody scrambling. I don't hear any sirens. I don't hear any screaming, yelling. I, I don't know what that was. And I go, Christy, I don't think that was a car backfiring, but I go, I've never heard a gun sound, I never heard gunshot sound like that. To me, it sounded like a cannon going off. And she's
How
like,
many
well,
of them? 1, 2, 3?
two, boom, boom, just back to back. And she goes, well, in between these buildings and stuff, it might sound like that. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't see any commotion or anything. So, we go into Trader Joe's, and I asked the people in there, did you guys hear that? Nope, nothing. So, we get our groceries and go to the game. And as we're heading home from the game, I said, yeah, I wonder what that was at the mall. I wonder what that was. And she looked it up. Sure, on the news, sure enough, one dude was mad at another dude, shot at him twice, missed him, shot at him twice. So I've never been in a situation like that where I was that close to some people just shooting at each other, and it was crazy. I mean, I don't even know how to. It's like surreal, like that happened. Like I didn't see it, but I mean, it was within, 100 yards of it happening. There you go. Almost feel like you in your career as a law enforcement.
I don't think I've ever been around anybody that was actively shooting. I'll have to think, but I don't think I've ever been around anybody actively shooting.
In your whole career, you never were around anybody that actively shot, huh?
Well, I mean, I was there post people being shot, but they usually quit shooting back in my day, they quit shooting when the cops rolled up because the cops shot them. Nowadays, I don't know what they got going on, right? But we have talked at length about how good the criminals used to be compared to the turds walking around nowadays. Okay.
Yes, the criminals used to be better behaved.
Yes, they totally were because they understood there was consequences to be had. But unfortunately, nowadays,
that's not the case.
That appears not to be the case. Yes, and I don't really want to go off on a tangent. What made me think about that. First of all, I want to say if it was a real gunshot, you would know it, but obviously you didn't, right? So maybe
I never.
That's because you wear rose-colored glasses.
Okay.
And who was that? That wasn't George Jones. Who was that?
That was, oh my God. That was,
Funny.
No, it wasn't. It was DAC's favorite artist of all time. Oh,
Ooh.
it's oh gosh. See, I'm gonna look it up. But that's his Wade would tell you in 2 seconds. And there's people out there screaming. John Conley.
John Conley, yes, I should have known that.
He is David Allan Coe's favorite male vocalist of all time. He has told us that, and we actually, this record that we're messing around with, that will eventually come out with David. True, I don't remember. Did John Conley he might have sang something on it. Wade may have pulled some strings and got John Conley to sing something on it with David after David had already recorded.
Not to get on the country music train, but you got, because I was going to tell a backfiring car story. But
yeah, what's a like I mean, I'm not, we've already established, I'm not a hunter. I'm not a big gun guy at all. I have been around, my dad used to have guns, shoot guns. I've been around those guys at the farm shooting guns. I had never heard gunshots sound like that. I mean, it sounded like a cannon, and Christy, who Worked a lot.
Well, what kind of gun
lived in
was
Clinton.
it?
Oh, I don't even have. I have no clue. Like, I can't believe. To me, it would have had to have been a shotgun.
What's the
way it
date?
sounded.
What's the date? Where are we on the first week of December or the second week of December?
Yesterday would have been December 11th.
Okay. A year from now, I want you to ask me about a short-barreled rifle. I'm going to tell a story, but I'm not. I'm going to wait a year before I tell
it. Oh God, how am I going? Where am I going to leave it? Okay,
I don't know. Maybe one of the audience will remind me. 52 weeks, maybe Big T Rich or somebody reach back and say, "Tell us the short-barreled rifle story."
Okay, I'm gonna lean.
Fresh in.
We're gonna lean on one of our.
Yep.
One of our.
It's too fresh for me to tell you, but my favorite car backfiring story. I used to be. I still am a Chevy connoisseur, but I used to be back in the day when you could get a square body truck for next to nothing. I had a real nice '86 short bed Chevy 4-wheel drive with a 4-speed in it. And it was sitting on the side of US 50 out here west of Jefferson City, and I bought it. And I had a Suburban, but I bought it just because it looks good, and I thought it was a little sexier. And I just started dating what is now my wife. And I lived in Mexico, Missouri with my roommate, who was also a patrolman with me, and he was a Cobra / he was old enough. He started with Cobras and he finished with Apache. So if we got any attack rotor pilots in our audience, they'll know what I'm talking about. So he was he's actually just retired from the Guard as a CW4 training guy, and so he's a rotor pilot. Okay. And we lived in a duplex, and he parked in the garage, and sometimes I'd pull behind him because we had 2 trooper cars out on the street in front or whatever. So my wife, she was a girlfriend at the time, she showed up at my house earlier. Maybe I had to work late. Something was transpiring where she was there with my roommate, and my roommate needed to go somewhere. Okay. So he called me. It's back when we had bag phones. Remember phones?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So he called me on the bag phone and said, "Can I take your truck or whatever?" And I said, "Yeah." So my wife, instead of just waiting there bored, I don't even know if we had cable TV. I don't even know if we had a TV. I'll be honest with you. Because I know I didn't have a TV when he went back in the Army full time, and when our lease was up, and then I went and moved in by myself, and I know I didn't have a TV of my own from the time I left my mother's house to the time I got married. I didn't have a TV. Okay, so
because you're too cheap to buy one, or you just didn't have the need for one.
Well, what did I need a TV for? I could watch myself if I wanted entertained. I had a mirror. Anyhow.
Oh, that's a Patreon. That's a Patreon episode. Let me make a note of this.
And this truck, I had bought this truck, and the longer I had drove it, the worse it started running bad, and the longer I drove it, the worse it got to running. It's still starting to run like all good Chevrolets. So he called and said, "Hey, I need to move your truck." And I said, "Well, just take it if you need to." Okay. So my wife jumps in the truck, and this is a story that she loves to tell. And they're driving to kind of the main drag, Business 15 or whatever, in Mexico, Missouri. And there's the building's old school, where the building still got these big glass windows. You know what I'm talking about? You know how they have just big glass fronted stores from the 50s and 60s. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But as he's driving it, it's buck jumping and coughing, and it keeps wanting to die on him. Right? So they're stopped at a stoplight, and Jim's trying to keep it running. And this woman pulls up in the turn lane, so it's one lane each direction with a turn lane in the middle. A woman rolls up and puts her passenger side window down. And Jimmy puts his window down and says, "Yes." And she said, "Sir, your truck's on fire." And they look over in that storefront window, and they can see fire coming, because it had like, back in the days when you'd have like 18, 20-inch glass packs turned down right behind the cab. That's what it had, with flames coming out. So, needless to say, they got to give a big kick out. And of course, Jim he was always calm. He was he's a deadpan guy all the time, right? And he said, "Thanks," and just rolled up the window. And she sat there staring. When the light turned green, just took off. This truck a popping and a hopping and backfiring. And you know what's crazy is I was driving it the next day and it quit, and I couldn't get it to run. And I sat there and run the battery dead trying to start it. And I got my Suburban and I drove over there. My Suburban was an 86 also, 3/4 ton with a 350 in it. The short bed had a 305. And I don't know what made me look, but as I'm trying to jump start it, I look at the distributor on my 86 that runs like a top on my Suburban, and I look over the distributor on my short bed, and the bolt that holds your distributor down had come loose, so my distributor was either advancing or retarding, and you'd have to get a mechanic to tell you which one would flood out. Probably retarded, I assumed. So I reached up there and I turned it. Now, no timing light or nothing. I kind of turned it to where it looked about like the one in my Suburban. Fired right up. I tightened the bolt down and drove it. Never did time it.
It never
drove down the main drag
of
that street every third or fourth shift because it's a 4-speed. Pop, bang, boom. So,
so you say I very well could have been just some guy. Well, although I know it wasn't because in the news it said
in the news maybe
a guy put. So those bullets had to land somewhere if they didn't hit the guy. Like, I've read where people have in celebration shot guns up in the air and the bullets come down and kill somebody.
It always comes down. Shooting in the air is the dumbest thing in the world. Yes.
Well, I know it's always going to come down.
Look at them, and I hate to talk about the some of the Western Asians like this, but you go look at some of these Sandland videos where they have a wedding celebration and they're out shooting AKs and different stuff, and about every third one of them somebody gets shot accidentally.
Because the bullet's got to be coming just as fast down as it would be.
Well, speed of gravity, 9.8 meters per second squared, right? It was proven in the Guinea and feather tube.
If you say so.
Don't you remember physics from this is like 8th grade stuff?
No, I don't. I mean, I remember being in physics, and that's about it.
So anyway, false speed is speed, obviously a little less than the true. For the true speed of gravity, it's got to be in a vacuum.
Are you just quoting what the Scarecrow said in the Wizard of Oz when they handed him
a brain?
No, they handed him the medal for.
No, I thought when you handed him the brain, he quoted, "If the temperature and the dew point are within 6 degrees of each other, absent wind, you will have fog." That's what he said.
No, that's not what he quoted. That's not what he quoted. Didn't he do the Pythagorean theorem or something?
I don't even know what that means.
Oh, geez. Okay.
I am merely a product of public schools in the Ozarks. You know what I mean? I can't make miracles.
You can't make miracles.
I can't decipher. Double knot. If you want me to count very high, I got to take my shoes off.
Well, at least it's just your shoes, right?
That's right. I don't do even numbers. When I got to do odd numbers, I got to look see who's watching.
You said something about a bag phone, and that reminded me of the one harvest. I was out on the farm. I was with another one of my buddies. We were running the dryer for the grain bin.
Grain dryer.
Okay. And back then, I mean, we're talking 20 some years ago. We had those like FM radios. Like, so all the
I know what an FM radio is. Yes.
I mean, not that we listened to, but that we talked on. They called.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So all the tractors and everything had them, so we could all talk to each other. And we're in there running, checking the grain, see how wet it is and stuff. And all of a sudden, I can hear my stepdad yelling over the FM. Like, what is he saying? We heard fire. We heard something. Right. Oh my God, something's on. It sounded like the field's on fire, the tractor's on fire. So we jump in the truck, and he's probably 5 miles away. And when the truck we're in, we can still hear the the FM. And he's like, talking to some of the other guys, and we grabbed a fire extinguisher, okay, like a little fire extinguishers in the grain elevator, and we get to the field, and here the combine he was in caught fire, and he was out in the middle of the beans and shut off the combine, or shut off the header.
Yep.
And was trying to get out of the rest of the beans as the combine
Caught on fire.
became fully engulfed.
Yeah.
And he basically jumped down the last two steps into the field before the cab and everything just went up. Okay. Now, this was about, I don't know, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. And his dad, who was somewhat retired from the farm, but he was always around the farm. But about 4 o'clock, 4:30, him and his girlfriend, they were heading to the AMVETS. Okay.
Oh yeah, where they should be, right?
Where they should be, yeah. And so, of course, he gets somebody must have called somehow.
That's the way news travels out there in the country.
Yeah. Well, somebody got a hold of him up at the AMVETS and said, "Hey, Dave's out in the field. The combine's on fire," and he had to tell the volunteer fire,
who were all at the bar with him.
He met them on the way out, and they couldn't figure out where my stepdad was.
Well, they can't see the smoke.
No, they couldn't. Okay, this is volunteers. God love them, but they didn't know exactly where they were going.
Right.
And so he tells them. They all get out there. My stepdad's like leaned over the combine just behind him, just gone, totaled, just burning. My stepdad's like sweating, breathing, and Ike, that's what we called his dad, walks up and cigarette in his mouth and goes, and my stepdad's nickname is Hilligan, and he goes, "Hilligan, did you get my phone out of there before you shipped that?" Because he had one of those bag phones.
Right. Left it in the combine.
My stepdad looks at him look, because Ike is about 5'8". My stepdad's about 6'6", and he kind of looks up at me. He goes, "Your phone? I barely got my blankety blank, out of there myself." He goes, "You want your phone? Go climb up there and get it." And that's all you could ask about was the phone.
Sometimes I had somebody tell me one day, I was talking about all the dumb stuff that people told me when my brother died.
Okay.
And then somebody told me, a person that's really a pillar of the community told me that's their way, and who's been around a lot of different things. A state trooper told me that's, a lot of times they just looking for something to say. It's their way of closure too. But a lot of times they're just looking for something to say.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
back then, my question, if it had been my combine, I'd have said, "Where's the insurance policy?" Because 20 years ago they were only 350,000. Now they're $1 million.
Oh yeah. Here's what's crazy is it burnt that thing
to the crisp.
Oh, to the crisp, the tires melted. You know what I'm saying?
I seen a couple fires earlier this year up North Missouri that were just, and I guess those things, they just get so much grain dust and all the my buddy told me it's a bearing, because I asked him what happens. He says what happens is a bearing is worn out and that gets hot and it ultimately sparks it, and boof.
Mm-hmm. What happened? So the things we're like, how are we getting this out of the field? You know what I'm saying? And
you mean the burnt wreckage of this thing?
The burnt wreckage of it, and they said, "Don't worry about it." Somebody came, someplace wasn't even the insurance, some place that specializes in tractors and stuff, wrecked ones.
All right.
Bought that thing, and so I'm talking. This is 1998. Okay, I think they paid $10,000 or $15,000 for that.
For
thing.
what was left of it.
For all it was left of was the drive shaft. That was it. That was the only thing they said they could salvage off of it.
So it was all like the internal axles in the housings and stuff.
Yep. And they came out there and waited till the ground got a little bit, was enough for them to get the semi out there. And they got that thing right up on a flatbed semi and took it right on out. So after the insurance settled with them and totaled it, then they just went ahead and sold it for, whatever scrap that was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about that?
Well, hey, good for them, right? That's why the American farmer can't make it.
Something like that. I told you we got a lot of reaction about our take on Yellowstone last week. Do you feel like we were should have been talking about Yellowstone?
I don't remember what we even said. Do we? Except for what made it worth watching.
That's what made it worth watching.
Costner's the second one, just worth watching.
I don't know. I like Rip. I think Rip is the guy.
You know what? I don't like. You know why I don't like watch Rip? It reminds me so much of myself. I think I could have been on TV. When I see Rip is playing me on that show.
Really? Okay.
Yeah. If the fans want to know what I look like and how I act, just look at Rip on Yellowstone, and then that'll be me. I mean, that's all you. I'd say that's about it.
God. Speaking of the fans want to see what you look like, I think we could. I don't have the finalized details, but I think next year we're going to be doing our first live show where people can buy tickets and come to the theater and watch us.
There you go. Make sure
How about that?
Small and dark, smoke filled.
Make sure. Well, of course, we're not going to be the headliners. But I'll release those details when they're
I've been listening.
Available.
I've been listening to that Cocaine and Rhinestones.
Oh yeah, how you like that?
And let me tell you, well, I've just about I normally listen to a lot of political podcasts, and I have not listened to a political podcast till you sent me. I forgot the first one. I think I listened to one of the blues ones. Robert Johnson going down a crossroads or something like that.
Oh no! You're not. You're listening to. You mean you're listening to? Not Cocaine and Rhinestones. That's Tyler Coe. No, you're listening to Disgraceland. Is Robert Johnson?
I think.
Yes.
Yeah. So I listened to that Disgraceland. I've been listening to the George Jones Tammy Wynette Chronicles for the last 3 days.
That's on Cocaine and Rhinestones. Yeah.
And I'm telling you what, dude, my wife just bought this karaoke machine for the kids for Christmas.
Yeah.
She thinks it'll be great, even though they're about too old to act stupid, but whatever. So she was spending all this time to try to get it working today. And, my kid, of course, Monday, this is just how Christmas is anymore, right? And the kids that are going to use it the most are sitting right there watching her mess with it. She's going to rewrap it up so we can take it back apart. So they were trying to Bluetooth their phones and, just stupid stuff. My youngest boy said he wanted to be a rapper. He wanted to put some Vanilla Ice in there or some Kid Rock or whatever. And, of course, my wife,
She was putting in
They
George
jacked
Jones.
around and they wanted me to sing something. So I said, you need to put on some George Jones. And none of them had heard of him.
Are you kidding me?
They acted like they didn't. My old lady should have known, but who knows? Once you get married and have a few kids, they forget every damn thing. So I had them put on, we're not the Jetsons. We're not the Jet Sets. We're the Chevrolet Sets.
We're not the Jets.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Looked at me like I was the dumbest. Because when I'm listening to the Cocaine Rhinestones, he fills in with so many of them songs, right? And tells you some different stuff, right? And I'm telling you, I don't think he's featured a bad song yet. You know what happens? I see stuff like that, huh?
No, it's great. It's great. And so for people that don't know what we're talking about, we kind of talked about two podcasts here. One is a podcast called Cocaine and Rhinestones that is by Tyler Coe, which is David Allan Coe's son, and we'll get into this. We'll get into this on a later podcast, a little bit of the David Tyler thing. But Tyler it is like a college class on country music. I mean, so it's not just for your casual fan. It's for somebody that really enjoys history and
Yes, so some of them go a couple hours sometimes.
Oh yeah, like 3 hours, a couple of them. They are really intense, but I mean, if you really like for instance, this season that we're talking about, it's George Jones and Tammy Wynette. Anything you want to know.
And see, I didn't realize she started out as a hairdresser.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. And so the other one that I referenced, Disgraceland, which was talking about Robert Johnson. Okay. I'll just go ahead and say it. If any of our fans know Disgraceland, then you'll be excited about this. But Jake Brennan, the host of Disgraceland, and I have been messaging, and he is going to come on with me and the Howler in the new year, and we're going to do a show, and it'll probably be off the charts. It'll be off the charts good show, because if you haven't heard Disgraceland, go check it out.
And tell them what it's about. Tell them what it's about.
Well, Disgraceland is about
the personal potholes that some of these musicians
have
to navigate, and some of them don't navigate. Some of them navigate better than others.
Yeah, and so it's another fantastic podcast on the music industry. Like you were referencing Robert Johnson. For people that don't know Robert Johnson, he's the soul blues singer who supposedly sold his soul to the devil so he could play blues better than anyone else. And it's a great story, and he does all this research. There's ones on James Brown,
from you guys in the 80s. If you remember Ralph Macchio
in the Karate Kid. Yeah.
Yes, they did a movie called
Crossroads.
In what, about 84, 85?
It came out right after Karate Kid, I think. Right?
Yeah.
It came out about the second Karate Kid.
Do you know who the devil was? The guitar playing devil?
Boy, I don't remember who.
Steve Vai, one of the best rated guitar players in the world at the time.
But he, I heard a good one on Disgraceland about Mama Cass from Mama and Papa's, and how her connection to what's her name? Roman Polanski's Sharon Tate and the Manson murders. There was a great one on Charles Manson being connected to James Taylor and
the Beach Boys. That's the second one I listened to, or maybe it was the first one.
There's great ones on Chuck Berry. I mean, he's got about 100 episodes, and then he's branched off. There's one about sports. There's one about movie stars. His podcast is very well researched, great storytelling, and it's all, I mean, Tyler's is the Cocaine and Rhinestones is a college class. This is very informative, but it's a little more fun, I should say. Right? I mean, it's a little more fun, has a little more flair.
I don't want to say he pokes fun at him, but you know what's, and obviously people are, the smart people realize, let me rephrase that. How do I define smart people? Realize that these famous people sometimes aren't that bright. Just because they're famous and make a lot of money, I can't call them rich, because they seem to not be able to keep their money very well. You know what I mean? Right? But just because they're popular and they make a lot of money doesn't necessarily mean they're smart. And when you hear about some of the stupid things that and I don't want to rail on Tammy, God rest her soul, but she must have been an idiot.
Yeah, I mean, listen.
You want to talk about a troubled soul?
Well, I'm going to tell you this, and I'm surprised Tyler, and Tyler and his dad do not talk. Okay, and they
Right.
haven't talked for many, many years. And like I said, we'll get into that maybe with Jake Brennan, because I think maybe that'll be some road we go down with him. But I'm surprised because and I know David on a level that a lot of people probably don't, and have heard some stories and some of the explanations, for what people think about him from his mouth. And I got to be honest with you, George Jones is 100 times worse of a person as a person than David ever was. I'm just going to say that. I mean, the stuff that George Jones was into and did to himself.
Yes.
And just, I mean,
and
but
maybe
people
it's
think
maybe
people think he talk about rose-colored glasses. I think they look at George Jones with rose-colored glasses a little bit, because he seemingly was such thought of as such a
just
great,
a good old boy. I mean,
yeah.
Then they talk about that. He basically embraced the old alcoholic, good old George,
Yeah.
and really reinvigorated his career with that. Just all shucks, he's doing the best he can. Right?
Yeah. Meanwhile, he ain't much different than the guy sitting in front of the liquor store, on the bench with the, taking a nap with the bottle and a bag between his legs or something. He's probably not even that good. I mean, in fact, he did live in his car for, I don't know if you've got to that
I mean,
part
how many
yet, but he
times
lived
have
in
I
his
had to
car
say
forever.
this? How many times do I have to say this? You can live in your car, but you can't drive your house. So I don't fault people. And the way these trucks cost nowadays, I mean, if you get a new truck, you got to live in it. It's more than my first house. And maybe it's because I always thought Tammy Wynette was just a clean, good-hearted woman, because that was what she was trying, stand by your man. She was trying to, that's what the industry put for her, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then you hear just some of the just absolute craziness.
Oh yeah. I mean, I was stunned. I mean, I did not even come close to know how her final days were. Like, I was shocked. I totally shocked, as to how her life was there at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Could I don't know. I could not wrap my head around. But I mean, it is. I mean, it's real life, man. I mean, like you said, just because they're rich or famous or both doesn't mean they're living any better than the rest of us.
Oh, in some ways, you'd think they're living bad. You know what I mean?
Well, it's just train wreck after train wreck.
I tell you, the happiest guy I seen last week, and not to close on this, I don't even know what made me think about it, but maybe you saying that they're not living any better than us. Okay. I asked a friend of mine today if they ever thought about turning Amish or Mennonite, and they thought I was joking or something. But my youngest kid's a deer killing machine. Okay. At 13, he's not 14 yet, but he has surpassed my lifetime kill number of deer. He's killed 4 deer in the last, I don't know, 2 weeks. So,
how many are you allowed to kill down there?
Well, I got a farm in North Missouri, so as a landowner, they give me 10 tags just for my property.
Oh,
so really? I put 3 in his name, 3 in my name, and I don't remember. I didn't take all 10. I think I gave my daughter 2 or 3 too, in case she wanted, which is 50-50 on. She's a hell of a shotgun shooter when it comes to pulling the trigger on Bambi. Sometimes it doesn't work out the best. Anyhow, they have a thing called Share the Harvest, where you can donate your deer and it goes to feed the needy. So north central Missouri's got some pockets of CWD, chronic wasting disease. It's some kind of a brain spinal disease that these deer get, and that's why they want to kill a bunch of them. They think the more deer they kill, the more samples they get, and they can better combat this. Okay. Yeah. 2 things happen. It reduces the herd. So this last week was a doe season only, antlerless season. So I took my son up to my land, and he, killed a couple, and and I've already got the first couple we killed, him and another kid. Anyway, I've already got 2 of them in the freezer. Now I'm going to get 2 more. So I told him, I said, because him and this other boy that never went deer hunting, we took him, and I said, you guys can kill whatever you want. And on Saturday, I said, kill everything you see if you want, and then because I'm going to donate them all. I called the donation guy on the list and said, there's a locker, so there's a little, you got to take them to an approved locker. For 2 things. They can check for CWD and then donation anyway. So this locker's about 35 miles out in the country. It just popped up on the list this year. I called the guy. Boy, he answered the phone. Now, he had a Mennonite last name. If you've been around Amish Mennonites, they got certain last names.
Yoder, Miller.
Yeah,
Yoder,
just
Miller.
like that. Just like that. And but he answered the phone, which that put him in the Mennonite category because the Amish guys won't have a phone. Anyhow,
this is a payphone.
We put these dead deer in the truck. And we drive out in the country, and sure enough, when I make the turn at the gravel road, when it goes from blacktop to gravel, there's something that says like Smith Harness Shop or something. I think it's a harness shop. And I said, okay, so this guy is my stereotype, because I'm the judge. I judge people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I pulled up this place, and sure enough, it's just a Mennonite butcher shop, and he was so nice and friendly. So for being a Saturday night, some stranger showing up with 2 dead deer. Before it was over with, 2 more strangers showed up with 2 more dead deer. And he was a young guy, probably in his late 20s, early 30s. He was just friendly. Just friendly. He just opened that business. The one gentleman asked him, and he said, this is his 2nd year. He's taken 210 deer. And I just liked it so much. And he had 2 boys with him. This one kid's there, blonde-haired, blue-eyed boys, and he was filling out the paperwork, and he said, well, he'll show you where to take them, and they'll start skinning them. The one kid was on crutches because apparently he broke his foot somehow. And playing's what his dad said. If these kids, this is what this Mennonite says, if they spend more time working, as much time working as they do playing, and they work them like dogs, you know what I mean? So I'm thinking, what are you talking about?
I was going to say,
my kids,
That's really something for a Mennonite guy to say.
Yeah, saying that. Yeah, it does that. If he worked as hard working as he did playing, but we brought these dead deer around back, and these kids 7 years old had the knife, 9 years old the crutch, was helping hook him up, and they went to cutting on these deer like Edward Scissorhands or something, just and I liked it so much. I said, hey, you got any Mennonite merch? You got any merch in this place? Because I thought he'd not realize he ain't got no Mennonite merch. Mennonites ain't got merch.
But we do. Well,
I thought maybe we should have one for him. We should have
We do. How about that? Like we're just about ready to open up the new merch store.
Mm-hmm.
And how'd you like that Ozark Howler candle?
Well, I was worried about what it was going to smell like. That's why my lady wanted to know what it smelled like.
I don't know what it smells like, but
because if it's true Ozark, it smells like 2-stroke oil and 2-stroke gasoline and burnt wood.
Well, let's open. Speaking of burnt wood, I'm going to put out something. I saw something come across my Instagram feed, and I didn't know if it was a joke or whatever, but I figured maybe one of our listeners might have one of these. They're called city bonfires, and there's these 2 dudes talking about how they like to sit around the fire in the backyard or whatever, but they spent so much time worried about their kids falling into the fire that they decided to make a little portable bonfire. And it's like in a little canister that you open up. You can have like a little self-contained like fire on your.
How big is it?
It ain't very big. It looked like
5-gallon bucket or something.
Oh, not even that big. It looked like a little tin tuna can, like double that size. That you open up the lid and it's just like a little bonfire.
I've never heard of such. I seen a bonfire. The only city bonfire last month. I told you about the homeless people sitting out at Aretha Franklin's house in Memphis.
Yeah. Oh, geez. And so anybody, I was wondering if any of our listeners have ever used one of these city bonfires. I'd like to, it look kind of cool. Might be a
I
good
thought these just used an old barrel or something.
Well, that's for a bonfire in the city.
You know,
This
when you
is
said
really called city bonfire.
when you said the city bonfire, have you ever seen the pallet fires they have in the competing towns over there in the Netherlands? Outside of Amsterdam, there's a river that cuts through there, and I don't. If you Google up pallet fire in Amsterdam, you'll get it. So there's two towns that build these giant, basically pallet. You know, they stack pallets up.
What was it? Are you sure it's not like a Viking funeral or something over there?
And every year they try to get it, but I heard this last year was going to be the worst one or the last one because they made it so big. See right here, 2019 Netherlands New Year's Eve beach fires banned.
They screwed up a good thing.
They always do. You know what that is? That's people letting the government take over their life instead of taking over the government. If people would just take over the government, we wouldn't have to worry about these clowns.
You mean the ones burning the pallets on the beach?
Yeah, we wouldn't have to worry about the freaking government telling them no. Right?
Before we jump off here, I got the quote. I got the Scarecrow's quote. Here we go. The sum of the square roots of any two sides of an isosceles triangle is equal to the square root of the remaining side. How about that?
Yeah, because if they're equal, they're equal.
Yeah, I'm reading it and I'm still don't know it. There you go. So, all right. Well, you never did tell the Trader Joe story.
There's a Trader when I worked in Minneapolis, there's a big Trader Joe's down the road from our office. And when it opened, these guys go over there and ooh and ah over to Trader Joe's and they buy little tins of this fancy food or that. I mean, you know what kind of stuff's in there, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they said something to me about going to Trader Joe's one day. And I said, dude, I got Aldi's right by my house. And they said, no, this is Trader Joe's. They didn't realize Trader Joe's owned by Aldi's. You're just paying, you know what I mean? You're just paying for the name, dude.
Oh, see, now I'm disappointed. Because I got an Aldi's. I live to go to Trader Joe's because I like the skin products.
Well, there you go. Because they don't sell skin products at Aldi's. They do cheap groceries, and you bring your own box.
Yeah, exactly.
Like prom. You got to bring your own box, and hopefully it's not too cheap.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of the From the Shadows podcast. Until next time, never shy away from the darkness or what may be lurking in the shadows. We are out.